Uh, Looks like we have a quorum since Daryl is the only commissioner that I don't see here. And visitor communication. Oh, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We're going, as presented, except we're going to, item 2 is not,
Oh, yes, that.
yeah,
Yes.
we're not using it, not doing it again. Okay, all in favor except for item 2?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay. Visitor communication. This is the time provided for individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission regarding issues not already on the agenda. Anyone? Yes. Anyone online? Emmy, do you think? Okay.
So that would be a no.
Approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the previous minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes for December 5th, 2024 and December 19th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a public hearing.
Oh, do I give a little time before you?
Oh, yes.
Hi. As you know, my name is Michael Braden. I'm on City Council and I'm the liaison to the Planning Commission, which is kind of this new deal that we're doing so we can touch base a little more often. And I just wanted to give you a small update of what we've been doing, and then I'd like to open it up if you have any questions of City Council while I'm here. You don't have to, so don't feel compelled like you have to interact with me, but at the same time, I do want to give you a small update. We have today was a really big day. Scott was there as well as the director of planning, and so we had our goal setting from 9 o'clock till 1:30 this afternoon over at the Makers Building, and I wanted to give you some quick updates, which is we're busy. And there's a lot of things in the goals that are already in place and will be updated with their new phases, such as the work on Barclay to get that phase 1 going, get the art later this year, but in the next fiscal year in the roundabout, among other things we're doing in the pedestrian and bike ped world. We're talking about getting a bike ped committee going, maybe as a subcommittee of Public Works, of the PWAB board. And we talked about doing some development code updates and maybe relooking at some of the efficiency measures to make sure that we're staying ahead of the UGB expansion and trying to also continue to update efficiency measures. Maybe we get a little more infill. And I'm sure that a lot of the things that we're talking about will come before you for the next, in the next fiscal year. So I hope you guys are excited. We're going to have another busy year. The city may not be growing quite as fast as it used to be. Maybe it's slowed down a bit, but there's still a lot of construction going on. And with the UGB amendment, if that goes through, then that's going to take us to the next phase, which is annexation and then other things which are going to keep us on our toes a lot over the next 3 to 10 years, if not more. So the city's in pretty good hands. The one thing I really like about the relationship between the city council and staff, hopefully yours is similar, is that we all seem to be rowing pretty much in the same direction. But not completely lockstep. We have new ideas coming through that may not have been heard before this next fiscal year. There's might be a couple of new committees or some new ideas to put some nuance of the work that's already happening. Obviously, we have a lot of capital improvement projects in our infrastructure as we're doing water lines, sewer installation, and a new reservoir as well. So there's a lot going on that Paul's going to be busy with. But that stuff's already kind of been in the works. So there's going to be some new things that come down, lighted crosswalks possibly, some other improvements that are easier to see. And we hope you guys get a little bit excited of doing something that's a little bit different than you've had to do so far since you've been on. I know there's a couple new people, but that's okay. It's pretty fun stuff. There will be some development code updates. I think we're almost at the point where we do little tweaks almost every year just because we come across new situations where we need to tweak the code just a bit here and there and update some stuff. And I'm sure that that'll happen as well. I think down the road, we're not too far away from a very large development code update, but I think that's going to be a couple years down the road still, but we talked about it today. Even though we're planning for the next fiscal year, we do discuss a little further out just to make sure we're all on the same page about what's got to happen this coming year and what can be pushed off just a little bit down the road. So that's my update for you guys. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
What is phase one on Barclay?
That's from Larch and that intersection right there on the corner of, not Larch, Locust and Barclay. And that'll become a softer left-hand turn and a stop sign coming from Camp Polk. And I think it goes to just the post office corner. I think it's pretty short. Yeah, Larch. And that's phase one. We have a bid on it for about $800,000, I think. And so that's the first phase. Second phase is the rest, which is upwards of 4 million. And we're going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for that. That's the biggest.
Trying to straighten the corners out.
Straighten the corners out on Barclay and improve with, I think we're going to do swales on both sides and multi-use paths on both sides, plus the turn lane in the middle. So a lot of work to do on that one.
Hopefully a few crosswalks as well.
Yeah, I would say crosswalks are
Take your
definitely
life
gonna
in
be
your
part.
hands.
A little bit pedestrian safer.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about pedestrian safety at this meeting again. Kathy Russell, our unofficial traffic engineer, was there at the meeting, and she's here again tonight to hear what you guys talk about as well. But engaged citizens like that are exactly what we need, because if we didn't have direction from our public partners, we would have no idea what to do up here. I mean, really, we would all be sitting here go, what are we going to talk about next? If somebody doesn't help us out and tell us what's important to the community, and that's not just Kathy, it's the whole community. We need every one of them to just let us know, what do you want?
It'd be nice if we had some signs that say pedestrians have the right of way in a crosswalk. Because motorists don't.
Maybe we could do a public service commercial from the City of Sisters and get it on like KTVZ or something like that. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it? We'll have to do that. Is anybody taking notes? Yeah. Anyway,
Could you clarify the phase two is from the post office all the way to the roundabout?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We had to get that first turn done because it's the biggest single change. The rest of it's just kind of the widening and putting the lanes in and stuff. But
Well, there's no.
we had to break. Yeah, we had to break it into two pieces just financially because it's a big burden. It would have been $5 million total or something like that, you know, if we had tried to do it all at once. And honestly, with all the other programs that are coming up, we're talking about doing the Adams Avenue streetscape. And that's a $3 or $4 million project, which is mostly funded by URA dollars, but not all. And so we have two of those really large projects on top of a new reservoir, the west side pump station, the new line that goes down Pine and Jefferson to get half of the city's sewage to the treatment plant. There's just a lot going on. We're actually, over the next 4 years, are probably going to do $30 to $35 million worth of projects. And that's a lot all at the same time. So we are going to have to make some tough decisions, obviously. We may do some creative borrowing, which we haven't done a lot in the past because our cash situation has been pretty good and our funds have always been full. But we're going to be using a lot of our water, sewer, street, park funds the next 5 years. And that's what they're there for. We've been waiting for this and now's the time. So.
In phase two, is there on Barclay again, is there Anything to guide trucks to start using Barkley more through town?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some signage component to it, but that's always like the last piece. As you've seen, even with the roundabout, there's not a lot of completed signage. I know that Paul was actually talking about another underutilized small cities grant program that we haven't used very much. And he's talking about using it here on Locust up to Barclay, providing better signage and better accessibility for crosswalks because there's only one crosswalk out here and it's right here. There's no more all the way down, so that might be something we're looking at as well. And that would also include speed mitigation signs such as 20 and the 35 and then crosswalks with the signs that they need. And we've been talking as a council a lot about lighted crosswalks because again, the pedestrian safety that Kathy Russell has brought up. Also, there's been another citizen on this side who walks his dog every day and has been telling us about how many times he's almost gotten run over. And I think we can all relate. We've all had a close call or two, mostly, just because we're a busy town. We do have 5 million cars go through our town every year. And even now, still most of them come right through the downtown. Now, we want them to stop and we want them to come through, but at the same time, we want it to be safe. So I imagine over the next few years, there's going to be a lot of discussions with ODOT about lighted crosswalks and speed mitigation and improving the Barclay alternate route. We have to be careful because it's not a bypass. It's an alternate route. The language is very specific on that, but yeah, it's high on everybody's mind because dead pedestrians are not what we want, right?
No.
No injuries, no deaths, no, so,
When I cross Cascade with my bike, put the bike in front, just taste it.
right?
Something's gonna get hit, it's gonna be my bike first.
Yeah, pretty smart. Anyway, that's my update. So thank you for giving me 5 or 10 minutes. You have any other questions? All right. Well, I'm going to let you get on to your public hearing. For the sake of legalities, I'm going to vacate the room because what you talk about here in your public meetings can come before city council, and we don't want to jeopardize any situations with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Don't do the guidelines, hybrid meeting. We don't need to.
Yeah, you don't need to read it, just.
Okay. This is the time set for a public hearing on city file number V 24-04, an application for major variance to allow 50% reduction to the required exterior yard setback and allow for 12-inch eve encroachments in the reduced setback, affecting the subject property 317 West Jefferson Avenue. The application was submitted by Dana and Nancy Bratton. The meeting is now called to order. Public hearing will be conducted as follows. Staff presentation, entry of additional correspondence received into the record, applicant opportunity to make a presentation, opening the public hearing for testimony in the following order. Testimony in support of the proposal, testimony in opposition to the proposal, neutral testimony. Applicant opportunity for rebuttal, questions of staff, if any, by the Planning Commission. Close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Discussion and decision by the Planning Commission. Testimony will be accepted in person and remotely via Zoom. Zoom attendees can request to provide testimony by using the raised hand button on the bottom of their Zoom window. Once staff sees the raised hand notification in Zoom, you will be unmuted and called on to provide testimony. Any questions should be directed to me as chair. When you testify, please state your name and address for the record. And please speak clearly and loudly to ensure testimony is heard as this hearing is being recorded. Callers will be muted after their testimony concludes. At my discretion, I may limit testimony to 3 minutes per person. I would encourage those wishing to speak to keep testimony concise and relevant to the issue before us this evening. It is encouraged to simply agree with a point made by another person instead of remaking the point. For the deliberations tonight, the applicable substantive criteria are listed in the staff report. These are the criteria the Planning Commission must use in making its decision. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards these criteria or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulations that the person testifying believes apply to the decision. Testimony that is not directed towards applicable or potentially applicable approval criteria, even if a strong point is ultimately not relevant. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the Planning Commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the Planning Commission to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. At this time, I ask the members of the Planning Commission to disclose any ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest. When your name is called, please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate or abstain.
Rick?
You're Rick?
I hadn't had no ex parte communications. I'm not biased in reference to this, and I plan to participate.
Okay, Jeremy?
I have no bias. I had no ex parte contacts and no conflict of interest, and I plan to participate.
Julia?
I had no ex parte communication and no bias, and I plan to participate.
Eli?
I do know Dana, and I have served on a board with him on the city, but we've never talked about planning or anything like that. So I don't think that will affect my decision. So I plan to participate.
Anna?
I've had no ex parte contact. I do live kitty corner to this lot and I walk by it every day and down the Oak Street path, but I don't believe I have any bias and I plan to participate.
Okay, I know Dana, but we haven't had a discussion about this matter at all. And I have no bias and plan to participate. Okay. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the ability of any commissioner to hear this matter? No. Staff may now present their report.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you all for being here tonight. And I also want to say thanks to the mayor, Michael Preeden, Commissioner Preeden, for the pleasant icebreaker. That was a nice warm up to what could be a rather dry public hearing process. And I'm going to bring up my presentation right now. Okay, well, we are here tonight to review the application that's before us, which is a major variance request, which is to reduce the required exterior yard setback by 50%, and to also allow for 12-inch roof eave encroachments into that reduced setback area. This major variance would affect the subject property, 317 West Jefferson Avenue, which is also Lot 1 of Block 25 of the Davidson Addition to Sisters. And again, my name is Emmy. I just wanted to give some brief context to where this lot is and kind of paint a picture of what the special circumstances are for this major variance. You can see the property here, maybe not so well. It's in a little red outline here. I'm also going to hover my mouse over it. The surrounding area is mostly zoned multifamily residential. There are a couple properties, such as the fire hall, which is zoned public facility and institutional district, as well as the Village Green City Park. That's zoned MFR, but it's owned by the city. It's a public facility in a sense. And surrounding the subject property are other residential uses such as single-family detached homes and accessory structures like sheds or garages. Next to this property is the Oak Street right-of-way, which you might see me shorten as ROW. This yellow highlighted box area kind of demonstrates the entire width of what that Oak Street right-of-way is. That means it's owned by the city, and it was originally platted to potentially eventually be an improved street. But as you can see right now, it is not a street. It has several significant trees. There's some informal walking paths. I think there's a ditch that runs through there that maybe is no longer like used for anything. And this street is designated as a local route, which is the lowest classification that the city provides for a street. And according to our TSP, the Transportation System Plan for Sisters, a local route designation requires the minimum width of a right-of-way to be 60 feet. So here, the Oak Street right-of-way is 80 feet, which exceeds that minimum standard. Also, just to provide some context on the plat history here, this lot with the star on it is the subject property. It's part of the 1911 Davidson Addition to Sisters, which included lots that are 30 feet wide, as well as lots that are 40 feet wide. Obviously, not all of these lots retained their original platted configuration. Many of them appeared to have been consolidated, but originally they were platted at 30 or 40 feet wide. There's also the Lowe Brothers Addition to Sisters, which happened in 1970, and those lots were 80 feet wide or more. And the reason why I highlight the dates that these plats occurred is because the city's zoning ordinance, I don't think existed until 1970, if not a little bit after 1970. So these are pre-existing lots that were configured before the existence of setbacks. So the request here tonight for the major variance is there's two components to it. The first one is to reduce the 10-foot required exterior yard setback, which would run along that unimproved portion of Oak Street, reduce it from 10 feet to 5 feet. So here's an exhibit provided by the applicant, and I've added the little blue highlighted areas, and those areas demonstrate what a 5-foot setback would look like with the buildable footprint using that entire area outside of the setbacks. And this is what that 10-foot exterior yard setback would be like if it wasn't reduced. This would result in a building footprint of 15 feet wide. Additionally, the applicant is requesting for the 12-inch eaves, for the eaves to encroach into that reduced setback by 12 inches. Typically, when we have interior lots, our code allows for eaves to encroach by up to 2 feet. In this case, they're asking for a reduced exterior yard setback and a 12-inch eave encroachment. And just to kind of, I'm using this exhibit provided by the applicant, which shows what other 30-foot wide lots have been developed with those 5-foot side yards. Some of these are corner lots. I only know the land use history on one of these, which is at the corner of Pine Street in Washington, where they did go through a major variance process for to reduce that 10-foot exterior yard setback to 5 feet. But many of these lots are interior lots. So the special circumstances here are the pre-existing 30-foot wide lots, which are narrower than the current code standards. And there are several other properties in the vicinity that have been able to develop with those 5-foot side yard setbacks. And the other special circumstance here is that portion of Oak Street, which is not functioning as a street. And typically the intent of an exterior yard setback is to provide additional separation of a structure from a vehicle travel lane. In this case, there's no vehicles driving through that portion of Oak Street. We have talked with the city engineer about that right-of-way, and they said that the city's not looking to improve it anytime in the near future. That could change depending on the city's transportation needs, and even in the event that the city might need to improve that street right-of-way, because it's 80 feet wide, it far exceeds that minimum street width requirement, so there should be ample room to safely accommodate traffic. So, I'm happy to discuss any or address any questions about my staff report, but I am recommending the Planning Commission consider the request and approve with conditions.
Okay. Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the agenda materials?
I have not received any correspondence submitted into the record.
Okay, questions of staff, rather than calling on everyone, I think just if you have a question, go for it.
This is gonna occur to all the 1911. It's on, man. You can't turn them off. Is this gonna happen to all the 1911 plotted 30-foot lots?
That is up to whoever owns the property. You know, they could have the option to consolidate the lots. I can't
So
guarantee
far,
that.
it's only happened this and another one, you said.
Yeah, so far it looks like it's happened. Yeah, on the corner lots here on Washington Street.
The recommended approval with conditions. What are those conditions?
The conditions are, let me pull those up. I think it's relatively boilerplate. I'll just read it verbatim. If I could find them. Okay. So there's one condition of approval, which is basically stating the approval period, which is identified in the code itself. Basically, this variance approval is valid for 1 year. If the applicant doesn't do anything about it, like they don't apply for a building permit within a year, this variance becomes void. But if they are, you know, tracking their timeline and they know they're not going to be able to apply for a building permit within a year, there is an option for them to request an extension.
And without this variance or without us approving this, they're gonna have a house that's only 15 feet wide.
Theoretically,
Long. I mean, it's pretty,
Shotgun.
yeah, I mean, there's a hallway going down the building. That's about it.
I don't think you'd have room for a hallway.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, the applicant will now have the opportunity to provide a presentation.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Dana Bratton. Chairman Art, it's nice to see you again, and thanks for allowing me a little bit of time. I want to say thank you to Emmy. Emmy's been very helpful in navigating the Sisters Development Court Code. I'm a lifelong student of real estate. have run an appraisal practice in Bend for 50 years. Moved to Sisters in 2019. I'm a small town guy, as is my wife. So we're fleeing the metropolitan of Tumalo and moving to Sisters. We've fallen in love with this property. It was platted in 1911 by a man by Mr. Davidson. George Sproat lived on this property for 70 years. He moved there in 1953, passed away in 1923. I didn't meet him, but I know his children and his grandchildren and enjoy a family relationship with them. I've fallen in love with this property, and it's my attempt to care for it and yet still provide housing for an element of the Sisters population. So 30-foot lots are small. The 10-foot setback on a side yard generally applies to properties that have a side yard that's adjacent to a street. We have an unimproved Oak Street right-of-way, so in a sense, there's no street. In 1911, there weren't many cars, but communities throughout the West were platting 30 to 35-foot lots, 25-foot lots, and 80-foot right-of-ways. And I'm intrigued with that because we've gone away from that. We now have some developments with 30-foot right-of-ways and 80-foot lots, and so it's kind of reversed, although we're going back to it with smaller lots all the time. If you think about 1911, there weren't a lot of cars, and perhaps you've seen historic photographs of communities with horse-drawn wagons that are parallel parked along the sides of roads, and then a center lane, so there's a lot of movement throughout those streets. 80 feet is just a super generous right-of-way. Of course, we have those in what I call Old Town Sisters, probably lot more than you need. I'm working on lots that front on Jefferson Avenue. The Jefferson Avenue right-of-way is also 80 feet. The asphalt pavement is 18 feet wide, and there are like 30-foot gravel shoulders on both sides of it. So you can navigate on a much smaller street than 80 feet. If you've driven down Jefferson, perhaps you've seen the homes we're building. There are 3 that are up and developed, and this is the 4th and final lot on Jefferson that fronts onto that unimproved Oak Street. Our attempt is to build something that matches that. We're trying to be very thoughtful in respect to the property, the trees that are on the property, and the neighborhood that we're working in. So I'm hoping for a favorable approval so that we can finish that Jefferson Avenue portion of the property. I'm happy to respond to a question.
Okay, at this time, again, I'm just going to allow you guys to ask questions rather than doing a roll call, if you have any. The applicant. Okay.
Thank you.
Public testimony. We'll now invite members of the audience to provide testimony. When your name is called, please come forward and state your name and address for the record before proceeding with your testimony. For those attending via Zoom, please use the raised hand button at the bottom of the Zoom window, and we will call on those wanting to provide testimony at the conclusion of testimony by those attending in person. Is there anyone signed up to give testimony? Anybody in the audience that wishes to give testimony?
Is there anybody on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom?
Nobody's on Zoom? Okay.
Okay, well, I guess the applicant won't need to rebut anything. Does any member of the Planning Commission have any further questions of staff?
Thank you for the good presentation, Emmy.
Thank you.
Okay, close or continuation of hearing. If there are no further questions, I will close the public testimony portion of this hearing. The public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. We've now closed the hearing and must deliberate towards a decision on the application. As always, our options are to, 1, approve the application as submitted, 2, approve the application subject to conditions of approval as amended, or 3, deny the application. When your name is called, or I think we'll do an open discussion on this, please provide your thoughts on the application and evidence presented, and what decision you are inclined to make, whether there are any findings in the staff report that you would like to change, whether you have any edits to the conditions of approval proposed by the staff report, and any other thoughts you may have on the matter. I'll continue going through the order until there are no further deliberations or until a motion is made, so you'll have the opportunity to respond and to adjust your thoughts based on testimony of your fellow commissioners.
Seems pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
Say we approve with conditions as stated by the staff.
My one and only question was gonna be, has this been done before? And that was answered by the presentation. Probably wouldn't have affected my decision.
And I drove by the subject property today just to take a peek at where it was, I kind of, sneaking around looking. I didn't sneak around, like I just drove by. But the adjacent buildings that you guys have done, it fits in nicely with the city too.
I agree with staff findings.
Okay, somebody like to make a motion to,
I move that we adopt this finding V24-04 as presented with the staff recommendation for the conditions.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, passed. Time for vote, which we've done. Okay, any comments, Scott?
Just a few here. Next meeting will be a workshop at 4 p.m. on March 6th, where we're going to basically talk about defensible space go over what's being proposed and what changes may have occurred since you last saw it based on council input, but it's really to get you prepared for a public hearing on the same subject on the 20th of March. And then one item that's been sort of added to our docket by City Council is to consider some amendments to the public facilities zone district based on some public comment that they received at the last meeting. It's related to the community center and some uses that the Citrus School District is interested in leasing to, and some nonprofits that are interested in going into that area where the use is specifically not allowed currently. But the council is interested in investigating potential options to broaden some of the uses over there to help provide some more options for uses of that property. And so next week we'll go to a workshop with the council to kind of talk a little bit more about what that is and kind of get a little more direction on what they want to see. And then we'll follow up with the Planning Commission at March 6th with a workshop as well, so we can get your input.
Is that coming from the city or from the school or?
Well, it came from kind of public comment from one of the proponents. It's the school supportive of it, obviously, but it was one of the proponents of it's a therapy. It's a nonprofit therapy behavioral health group. They currently do work with the schools in the schools, but there's apparently a big need for this in Citrus Country, and they have space over in Bend. In other community, they have a space in a community center in Bend currently, and just the way our code is written doesn't really kind of offer that same opportunity the way it's written. So looking at possible amendments to that, either to the definition or to the use table in the public facility zone. So that'll be so we'll have 2 workshops that night or that afternoon. So it might go a little longer than the typical hour. We'll try to keep it to maybe an hour and a half if you if you can allot that time, try to keep those workshops to a modest amount of time as possible. So mentioned March 20th would be just devoted to the public hearing on defensible space. And then just an update on other issues. We have put out an RFP for the Northwest Park master plan. If you're wondering what the Northwest Park is, it's the kind of the term that's being applied to the 2.8 acres of parkland that were deeded to the city by the Sisters Woodlands. It's over in the kind of the north. It's up against the roundabout. There's a parcel there that the city would like to do some further analysis on what uses might be feasible out there. The first kind of the concept that has come up through the Parks Master Plan process is kind of testing out a multi-use kind of facility that could include a small ice rink and then potential pavilion and uses during the summer. But that'll be part of a community process. We'll give the Planning Commission an update at various times. The Parks Board and the council will be most involved. But if it came through for land use in the future, it would come through the Planning Commission as well. So more just kind of a heads up that this is coming down the pike. And then you saw my email update about the UGB, about how the council kind of weighed in on the same issues that you guys did as well. So let me know if there's any questions on that. But the next set of meetings for that will probably be in May for the Planning Commission, probably mid-April for the steering committee. So, you have any updates? Matt, you have any updates? Okay, Carol? I think that's the staff update.
Oh, I might have an update actually. Okay, so last week on Wednesday, staff brought an SDC deferral program to City Council for consideration, and that involved amendments to the municipal code, our system development charge section, as well as adopting a resolution to create our first SDC deferral program, which is at this point focused only on affordable housing and workforce housing. Eligible developments have to have deed restrictions, so it does kind of keep it restrictive on who's eligible to defer SDCs, but it can be a very helpful tool in making those affordable affordable housing developments pencil just a little bit better.
How long are they deferred for?
The terms for deferral are up to 2 years, so they get to lock in at that current rate once they sign the agreement, and then for the next 2 years, or up until when they're ready to be issued occupancy, whatever comes first.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And that was a recommendation that came out of our housing plan that we did update in 2022 for tools that we could utilize to help with the housing in general, but specifically affordable housing. And that's something that we've heard from some of our affordable housing developers that is a really nice option for them to have. So and we're happy that we were able to get that the council approved that program, and now we can offer it up to a limited scope of developers. And then just to close the loop on the other project or the other application that went to council the other night that you guys saw, which was the tree fines, they approved it as recommended by Planning Commission. So, yeah, I think with that, that is the end of our staff updates.
This meeting is adjourned then.
Is there any commissioner? I think you have any commissioner updates, or did you already ask them? Okay. Just wanted to make sure that anybody had an opportunity to talk.
Okay.
Short and
Okay.
sweet.
Thank you, guys.
Good gavel in there, buddy.
Yeah. 40.
Yeah, authority.